Well, hello. Welcome to another episode of Speaking with Confidence with Kat Matson, the show where I help you, corporate hippies, humble leaders, business owners, how to speak up in a way that you are heard every single time. Now, before I forget, I need to let you know about my upcoming 7-day Speaking with Impact practice series. I ran this series for the first time back in January and it was such a hit that I'm doing it again already. We kick off on the 20th of April, so that's in just a few days if you are listening in real time. And over 7 days, you'll receive an email from me with, most of the time it's a video lesson, a very short practical video lesson that you can use in your day that day. So you can literally do what the series suggests and you can practice different techniques. So you do need to register. Oh, and I forgot, there are 2 live group coaching calls in that 7 days as well. So the link to join is in the show notes. And what I can promise you is that when you register and when you participate, you will discover how you, yes, you can land your message every time you speak without changing who you are, without performing, without needing to put on an act. You will just learn how to be heard. So, cannot wait to see you. Now, this week's episode, does this make sense? Now, this is a phrase that I have been using, God, as long as I can remember. But I have seen that many speaking coaches, management consultants, gravitas experts, communication experts will tell you, don't ask this question. And I've been really curious about it, to be honest, because as I said, I ask, does this make sense all the time? In fact, I've probably asked, does this make sense or does that make sense on this podcast, even when you can't answer. So I wanted to unpack this a little bit. And look, if I've been asking a question that doesn't work, then I want you to know. So feel free to sit here and shake your head in disagreement with me for this entire episode and let me know. I'm really curious. So let's give some context. The question, does this make sense? Does that make sense? Is a question that I use to literally gauge understanding. It is asking what it sounds like it's asking. Has what I've just said made sense? Now, from what I can gather, these experts who say that it's not a good question to ask, there's 2 key reasons. The first reason is that they say it can sound condescending, and it sounds like you are inferring that the person that you're speaking to is an idiot, and how could they possibly understand what you've just explained? If you're watching, then you just saw me with a quizzical look across my face. If you're listening, then you need to imagine that. Because for me, that does, it puzzles me. It puzzles me. To me, asking the question, does that make sense, is a check that I haven't gone too fast, that I haven't explained something that's confusing, that I haven't missed key steps, because I can do that. When I get excited about a topic, I can miss key chunks in my explanation. So when I'm asking you, does that make sense? I am literally checking in that I have delivered my message effectively. So this notion that asking the question might sound condescending, I can see how that might be the case. And for me, that's in tonality and in body language, not in the actual question itself. If I don't think my listener is smart enough to understand what I'm asking, or to understand what I'm explaining, and if I then ask that question from a place of believing that they're too stupid to understand, then yes, my tonality is going to infer that. But if I'm asking from a genuine place of curiosity of my own performance, then surely it's not going to sound condescending. Now, having said that, I'm aware that I have a tendency to always step into, I'm going to say, educator or facilitator mode. Hey, I've been educating and facilitating for 30 plus years. So I am aware that sometimes I can step into I know more mode, even when I don't necessarily mean to. So I'm very curious. Anyone who has listened to more than a few of my episodes, do I ever come across as condescending? Does it ever, do my questions, does that make sense, suggest that I don't think you understand? Gosh, it's getting meta, a little bit meta, isn't it? If you are concerned that asking that question is going to sound condescending, and if you do still want to ask the question, then make make sure that your tone and your body language is reflecting that you're coming from a place of genuine curiosity, not from a place of assumption that it's too hard a concept to grasp. So that's the first reason. The second reason why it seems other people advise against using the phrase, does this make sense, is because it undermines your own credibility. It infers that you haven't been good enough in expressing your opinion or articulating your arguments. Well, to be honest, that's actually exactly why I do use the question. Not because I don't think I'm a good communicator. In fact, I teach this stuff. I teach people how to speak. And because communication is a multi-way street, I don't get to just say what it is that I want to say and then assume that it's been heard, assume that it's been understood, assume that it all makes sense. And so when I ask, does that make sense? I am opening up the conversation for either affirmation, yes, I'm with you, it's all good, or I'm opening up the opportunity to say, actually, no, I don't understand, or can you go back to that piece, or actually, I've got a couple of questions. Now, I can appreciate from a communication perspective that asking the question, does that make sense, is a closed question. So it only invites a yes or no answer. However, when you're in conversation, if the answer's no, you can then follow up. Oh, tell me what's missing. Or they'll say, no, I don't understand this bit. So I can appreciate that some people will suggest that you should be asking for engagement questions like, do you have any questions? I actually think that puts too much pressure on the listener. Well, no, I don't have questions, but now does it look like I don't care enough about what you're saying? So the reason I wanted to talk about this in today's episode is because I've been seeing these little AI generated reels on Instagram all over the shop around how to communicate with more presence, how to communicate with more impact, how to be more professionally credible. And this is one of the themes. Asking, does that make sense, is possibly the worst question that you can ask. And I'm like, no, I think there's a lot worse questions that you can ask, or a lot of worse ways that you can undermine your credibility. And so if you are someone who asks, does that make sense? I wanted to reassure you, I think you're perfectly okay. As a facilitator, and I'm thinking now in terms of standing in front of rooms of groups of people, it is my job to ensure that people are following along. And so when I stand with open hands at the front of the room and say, does that make sense? I am literally looking for a nodding of heads or a shaking of heads. I am looking for the audience feedback that it's okay to move on. I will sometimes definitely ask, are there any questions? And there are times when I don't want to pause for questions. I want to keep moving unless there is misunderstanding. As a human, as someone who is trying to engage in a conversation, in a dialogue, in a like I'm wanting to engage in a communication, in an exchange of ideas, asking, does that make sense? I think it indicates, and the reason I've used it is I'm curious and I genuinely want to be sure that what I'm talking about has landed before I move on. Because as a facilitator, as a communication expert, I know that if it hasn't landed, if you are sitting there with confusion or overwhelm or too much information, then if I was to move on to my next point, it's literally like pouring water into an already full glass. There is nowhere for the information to go. So rather than just continuing to babble on, I'm going to check for understanding. I'm going to check in. Does that make sense? So I would love to know, am I missing something? When I ask that question, am I sounding condescending? When you've heard other people use it, do you bristle? Do you dislike it? How do you check for understanding? Or how have you been taught to check for understanding? I would love to know. So if you are listening or watching on Spotify, best way to let me know is just in the comments. If you're listening on a different platform that aren't so comments friendly, then come and find me on Instagram. You'll find me at Cat Matson. That's Cat Matson. There's a T in the middle of Matson. And I'll pop the links in the show notes. It's okay. And let me know, what do you think of the question? Does that make sense? And do you think that it undermines credibility or sounds condescending like these other people tend to suggest that it does? Also, just a reminder of what I mentioned at the top of the episode, the upcoming 7-day Speaking with Impact practice series. Now, past participants have told me, and I'm reading now, have said that finishing that program, this free 7-day program, helped them find their authenticity. It helped them create a clear picture of the lessons and the stories that I want to share. It's helped me tell my story with greater clarity and with integrity. It's helped me see my credibility. And possibly my favorite, it's helped me realize that I'm not a scatterbrain. I just need to focus on the common denominator, on the red thread between all of the things that I do. Someone else said, it's opened my eyes to what the audience needs. And other people have said it's helped me overcome my nerves when speaking to a group or when recording. So it's a really powerful 7-day program, and it's really easy. Short video lessons. You can listen on your way to work and then use them during your day. The link, of course, is in the show notes. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, does this make sense? So I look forward to seeing those wherever they pop up, here in Spotify or over on Instagram. And until next week, here's to confidence and here's to impact. I'll see you soon.